My sister-in-law called from her trip with friends asking me to go look after her daughter because she had left her alone. Now her trip is cut short because I called Child Protective Services and no one wants to deal with my sister-in-law. My sister-in-law, 38, and her twin brother. My husband have always had a complicated relationship. She has a habit of expecting everyone to drop everything for her, and my husband has always tried to keep the peace. I've had several issues with her over the years, but nothing prepared me for her recent actions. My sister-in-law has a 3-year-old daughter, Serena. She's adorable but very demanding like most toddlers. My sister-in-law is a single mother, and while I empathize with her difficulties, she often expects others to take charge of Serena whenever it suits her. She makes last-minute plans and assumes I'll babysit simply because my flexible schedule means I'm home a lot. I work from home, which she equates to doing nothing all day. A few weeks ago, my sister-in-law called and asked me to care for Serena for the weekend because she had a trip with her friends. She barely gave me any details about where she was going or when she'd be back. She just expected me to say yes. I already had plans with my husband, and honestly, while I had watched her daughter a couple of times, that was the extent of my help. I told her no. She didn't argue much, which surprised me, but I assumed she had other options in mind or understood that no was an acceptable answer. The weekend arrived, and my husband and I were out running errands when I received a screaming call from my sister-in-law. She was demanding to know why I wasn't at her house. I had no idea why I would need to be at her house and replied something like, "Because I'm doing my weekly grocery shopping and I don't want to be at your house." Then she started explaining why I should be at her house. She had already left for her trip assuming I would go. Serena was alone in the house and I needed to go take care of her. I asked again because I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I asked how long the child had been alone and she said she had left an hour ago. I told my husband and we immediately rushed to my sister-in-law's house. I was shaking the entire way, imagining everything that could have gone wrong. When we arrived, Serena was sitting on the living room floor, and thankfully a tragedy hadn't occurred. I picked Serena up and checked her over, relieved that she was physically well, but I was furious. While I was attending to Serena, my sister-in-law called again. She went from hysterical to furious, accusing me of abandoning her daughter. She screamed that I was the irresponsible one, and that if anything had happened to Serena, it would have been my fault. She claimed I had agreed to take care of her. She was convinced that I had given her an ambiguous answer that counted as a yes, but I knew that wasn't true. When I told her that she was the one who had left her daughter alone, she twisted the situation around, saying that if I didn't stay to care for Serena, she would call the police and report me for child abandonment. She was the one who abandoned her daughter, yet she was threatening me with legal trouble. It was so absurd to hear. My husband was furious. He took my phone and told my sister-in-law that she had completely lost her mind. He told her she was lucky we found Serena before anything bad happened, and that she was the one who should be worried about the police, not me. That's when my sister-in-law panicked. She started backtracking, saying she didn't mean it and was just stressed. She begged us not to call the authorities. At that point, I didn't care what my sister-in-law was saying. My focus was on Serena. She was too young to understand what was happening, but I could see she was a little unsettled, probably from having been alone. My husband and I fed her and made sure she was comfortable before deciding what to do. My sister-in-law kept calling us, wanting us not to call the police and to care for Serena until she could return. But the fact that my sister-in-law had been so negligent with her own daughter made my blood boil even more so because of what she said next. In one of her calls, she admitted that she knew if she called after leaving her daughter would only be alone for a few hours, and I would then agree to care for her after initially refusing. I always knew my sister-in-law had an extreme sense of entitlement, but this surpassed anything I could have imagined. It's an entitlement that leads her to view Serena as an object. She sees her as something special, but not as something she needs to care for and attend to. When Serena was born, she expected the entire family to participate in raising her. I understood that being a single mother was difficult, and I was willing to care for her a couple of times, but not to be her free babysitter. Moreover, she never asked. She simply assumed we would do it because she's a poor single mother, with the child's father in another city sending money but doing little for his daughter. Once we ensured Serena was safe fed and had everything she needed, we focused on the next most important thing. I called Child Protective Services. They took it seriously, and within hours they were at her house. My sister-in-law, of course, went ballistic when she found out. She was still on her trip when they arrived, which made things even worse for her. She had to cut her vacation short and return to deal with the mess she had created. By the time she returned, the authorities had already seen everything they needed to see. She was in serious trouble and knew it. But instead of admitting she had made a mistake, she doubled down. She went into full victim mode, telling the authorities and the entire family that I had betrayed her, that I had promised to care for Serena, only to then report her. She twisted the story so much that for a moment some relatives almost believed her. It didn't matter that none of it was true. She said it with such conviction that some began to doubt me. Meanwhile, my sister-in-law is facing real consequences. Child Protective Services doesn't seem willing to overlook this. They've taken this case very seriously. They are investigating her, and she is under serious scrutiny, which makes her furious, but we don't care because these are the consequences of thinking only of herself. She sent me a long, angry message accusing me of ruining her life, saying I had taken things too far and that if she lost custody of Serena, it would be my fault. I blocked her and didn't care. If losing custody is even on the table, it only shows how unfit she is to be a mother. The only thing I care about is the child who was born into the home of a narcissist. It would be best for Serena to be removed and placed with someone fit to be a mother, not a person who only uses her to gain pity and victimize herself. She's a daughter, for God's sake. She's not a plant you go on vacation and forget to water. Even I care more about my plants than my sister-in-law does about her daughter. I don't know where my in-laws stand on all of this. They haven't said anything directly to me, so I don't think they see me as the bad guy. But I also haven't spoken to them about this whole problem. As for the rest of my husband's family, I don't intend to comment too much. He's handling that, and I don't really care if they defend my sister-in-law or not. Update 1. I was receiving more messages asking for updates on Serena, but until I had something more definitive, I couldn't provide any relevant information. Until now. Serena has been removed from my sister-in-law's care and placed with my husband's parents. The investigation was swift. I believe it took about a week and the authorities made their decision. My sister-in-law was deemed unfit to care for her daughter. Her negligence, her reckless abandonment, her complete indifference towards Serena having left her alone simply because she trusted someone would come for her could not be ignored. She tried to blame me, alleging that I had set her up, that I wanted to destroy her life out of jealousy or resentment. But none of that mattered because she had no proof to back it up while the evidence against her was overwhelming. She was officially declared an unfit mother stripped of all visitation rights, and it was made clear beyond a doubt that she no longer had any claim over Serena. My sister-in-law's parents are heartbroken by the situation, but they know it was the right decision. They had witnessed their daughter's reckless behavior for years, and this was the breaking point. They intervened without hesitation, offering Serena a safe home, a place where she would never again have to fear being abandoned. My husband is also shaken by everything that happened. He feels guilty, wondering if he had failed as an uncle by not doing something sooner instead of letting it go this far, and my sister-in-law abandoning her. But it's possible the authorities wouldn't have done anything earlier, and luckily nothing worse happened. The important thing now, and what I've emphasized to him, is that we must help ensure that this child doesn't continue to suffer. Now with her grandparents, that will be much easier. My sister-in-law is not taking any responsibility, which doesn't surprise us either, because self-reflection isn't in her nature. Instead of reflecting on what she had done, she is channeling her anger towards others. She's angry with me, that's clear, but she's also angry with my husband for supporting me and with her parents. According to her, her parents should have refused to accept Serena so that Child Protective Services would return her, but I don't think it works that way. Something I didn't know was that Serena's father had signed away his parental rights, which is why he wasn't even an option or relief, because he would surely be as good a father to the child as my sister-in-law is a mother. But yes, my sister-in-law sees herself as a victim, accusing everyone around her of conspiring to ruin her life. She thinks her parents have plotted with me to keep the child because they wanted to spend more time with her, which is another lie because she basically abandoned Serena with them whenever she had something better to do, which was almost always. Not even her friends, some of whom went on this trip and knew nothing of this, think she acted correctly. It's hard to side with someone who abandoned a 3-year-old child to go on vacation. My sister-in-law tried to retaliate in any way she could. She attempted legal action, but no lawyer took her case seriously. She called family members begging them to speak on her behalf, but they refused. For now, the arrangement with my in-laws is temporary, which means there's still a risk that my sister-in-law could regain custody of her daughter. However, I like to think that the case is serious enough that she won't get her back, and it's possible that everything she's doing is further complicating her chances. Today, my sister-in-law's worst enemy is herself, and that's an advantage because we're fighting against someone who basically attacks herself, so it's an easy battle to wage. I know my in-laws aren't happy about becoming surrogate parents now, but they also can't leave their granddaughter alone or allow her to return to her mother. Update 2. My sister-in-law is like a monkey with a razor blade when it comes to social media. She thinks it's a weapon she can use against us, that she'll achieve something with it, but it's actually just worsening her case. She has used it in the past to blame my husband, her parents, or me, but now she's taken it even further, attacking her friends, the ones who went on the trip and can't believe she left her daughter alone. One particular post caught attention. She claimed that her friends had forced her to go on the trip and abandoned Serena, that they had pressured her to drop everything and manipulated her into making a mistake. She portrayed herself as someone who had no choice, as if she had been coerced into the whole situation, subjected to social pressure where her friends told her she couldn't miss the trip. And even though she told them she had no one to leave her daughter with, they manipulated her by saying that if she didn't go on the trip, they would leave her out. But that backfired completely. As you know, her friends had no idea she had left Serena alone. They assumed she had made the necessary arrangements for her daughter's care, that she had been responsible before leaving. As soon as they saw her post, they began to confront her. One after another commented debunking her claims and exposing her lies. Some even shared messages where my sister-in-law had enthusiastically planned the trip. She talked about needing a break and boasted about how liberating it would be not to deal with her daughter for a few days. She didn't openly say she would abandon her, but she also wasn't a very concerned mother for her daughter. The best thing she could do now is stay away from social media because it's not playing in her favor and is making her look much worse. But do you think my sister-in-law sees it? No, she's further ruining her chances of getting Serena back, which is for the best right now. In fact, every day that passes, everything looks worse for her. She clung even harder to her story, replying to every comment, trying to convince people she was telling the truth. But every time she argued, more screenshots, more proof, more evidence emerged that exposed her, and the contradictions were also numerous. Then she changed tactics. If she couldn't get people to believe she was innocent, at least she wanted them to pity her. She started posting about how she was suffering, how she was being unfairly judged, how she felt alone and betrayed. She claimed that losing Serena had devastated her, that she had trouble sleeping, eating, or living a functional life, that she had never suffered so much as now, and that she was a poor victim of all this, only wanting to reunite with her daughter to heal. But that didn't work either. The more she tried to play the victim, the more people reminded her of the reality of what she had done. Some of her ex-friends were openly outraged, saying they had supported her for years, excused her behavior, and given her opportunity after opportunity. But this had been too much. Even people who had never been personally involved started commenting, saying that no mother should ever leave her 3-year-old daughter alone as she did. Finally, she began spreading rumors that my husband and I had always wanted to keep Serena, and that we had conspired to make her look bad and thus gain custody. But that lie didn't last long either, because we never sought custody and have no intention of doing so. She also claimed that I had been unfaithful, that my husband had been unfaithful, and even her parents. She tried to attack anyone she believed was against her at this moment, but if I'm honest, everyone is against her because it's clear she's a completely irresponsible mother. There's no one in the world except someone just like my sister-in-law, as I've seen in some comments here, who is on her side. Now she's lonelier than ever. Her friends want nothing to do with her. Her family is exhausted by her behavior and completely disappointed. Her best option now is to leave social media, accept some blame, and try to work on making things right, but instead she prefers to play the victim, and that strategy isn't working out too well. That's just how she is, and she's not going to change now just because the world tells her she should. She's only going to double down because being shown that she's wrong breaks her image. It's even sad, but that's how these kinds of people work. I'd like to say she's the only person I know with these symptoms, but I've had my fair share of people who believe they are fine and the world is wrong. I'd even say I know too many like that, unfortunately. Update 3. Recently, my sister-in-law had a very public meltdown. It all started with a long emotional post in which she declared she would do anything to get Serena back. She made grandiose claims about how she had changed, how she had learned from her mistakes, how she was ready to fight for her daughter. In that post, she claimed she had made the necessary changes, learned from her errors, and was ready to work on whatever was needed. It seemed like a radical change, but what she wrote wasn't real. It was what she thought people wanted to read. And not because I know her, but because that supposed change lasted so few days that it was clear she was just lying and waiting for a reaction that never came. Within 3 days, she was back to writing the same old things she always writes. You know, those kinds of messages where the world is bad and my sister-in-law is good and a victim of injustice. Despite all her declarations about striving to improve, there has been no concrete change on her part. She hasn't attended parenting classes mandated by protective services, hasn't sought therapy, and hasn't taken any real steps to demonstrate she can be a responsible mother. She has the tools to regain custody, but she's like the meme of the person who puts a stick in her own bicycle spokes and blames half the world. All that's missing is someone to do it with my sister-in-law's messages. Worse yet, not only is she not doing anything that could potentially help her, she's further complicating things. Child Protective Services informed her that she cannot approach Serena until they see some positive change in her and allow her supervised visits. She has gone to her parents' house to demand they hand over Serena. My in-laws, of course, have not done so, even when she argued that she had an order to do so, something she probably printed herself because neither Child Protective Services informed my in-laws of this beforehand, nor did they know of this supposed order when they called after everything happened. But after my sister-in-law left and my in-laws reported it to the services, this also became part of her file. Meanwhile, Serena is doing well with my in-laws. We've visited a couple of times and she seems fine. She's happy, well cared for, and surrounded by love. My husband and his parents have done everything possible to give her stability, and she seems to be adapting very well to her new routine. The social workers who make regular visits said last time that she shows no signs of stress. At least not the kind usually seen in these types of cases when a child's environment changes. My theory is that she's spent so much time with them that it's just another fun day with grandparents. My sister-in-law continues to play with the razor blade and cut herself, but she doesn't even get reactions from people anymore. Before she'd receive comments or angry emojis, but now it's practically indifference, which is good because she seems like a mentally unstable person and it's best not to confront her to avoid a worse reaction. That's why my husband, my in-laws, and I have avoided contact or confrontation with her. We've blocked her and don't respond to her provocations on social media, which have been declining. We just have to wait for a judge to rule that Serena will remain permanently in my in-laws' care so we can breathe easy knowing she's not in danger. Addition: my in-laws have been granted permanent custody. That's all I have to update. Update 4. It's been a while since I saw an update. My sister-in-law has genuinely worked hard on herself. She started attending therapy, took parenting classes, and has been making a sincere effort to demonstrate that she is capable of being a responsible mother. At first, many people were skeptical. I was, for example. But over time, she has shown consistency. She also stayed off social media, which has been the most significant change for her. It hasn't been easy for her, but she's put in the necessary work to show that she truly wants to improve. I don't know if this change will last, but for now it's positive. Thanks to her progress, she has been granted supervised visitation rights. So it's not just me saying it, but the authorities. From what I can see, Serena is comfortable and enjoys spending time with her mother, which I wasn't sure would ever happen. Initially, she was a bit hesitant, but over time she has become more open and excited to see my sister-in-law. My sister-in-law, for her part, is handling things much better than before. She is patient, attentive, and genuinely strives to make each visit meaningful. She follows the rules set by the court and doesn't try to overstep boundaries. She no longer makes excuses or tries to deflect blame. She simply focuses on demonstrating that she can be a good mother. It's a huge change from how she was at the beginning, and I must admit I'm surprised by how much she has improved. There is still a long way to go, and everything remains under supervision. There's no guarantee about what will happen in the future. It's only been a few weeks, and she still has a lot to prove to even ask for full custody again. I don't know what to think. It's a complete 180-degree turn, and I find it hard to believe. But so far, the services have acted quite well, and I believe they won't give Serena back to her mother unless they are completely sure. Update 5. I bring you an update after having completely abandoned this story, much like my sister-in-law did with her daughter. I wish it were one where my sister-in-law had finally transformed into a mother for her daughter, but it's not that kind of update. It's the kind of update where my sister-in-law returned to her old life and tried to escape her responsibilities as a mother. For a while she tried, though. I think she did so because everything that happened previously made her look very bad. Not even her friends supported her, and she was very lonely. So she thought that becoming a mother for her daughter was the right thing to do, and she faked it for a while. She attended what the court imposed on her and pretended to be a good mother. But that didn't last long until she found new friends who knew nothing of her past, and she began to have the life she missed so much again. She finally stopped trying completely and lost her opportunity as a mother again. But her parents thought she shouldn't get away with it scot-free, so they sued her for child support and won. Just like with Serena's father, not wanting to be a parent doesn't exempt you from obligations. And my in-laws, seeing how unconcerned she was, decided to resort to legal action. This also caused her new friends to discover her past life and distance themselves from her, with the difference that now the court has removed her possibility of trying to be a mother again. She cannot and has not tried, but at least my in-laws are relieved that if she were to ever intend to play with her daughter's feelings again, she won't be able to. There is a minimal possibility that she could try again, I've been told, but that will be quite difficult and will require a significant amount of merit to even consider supervised visits with Serena. It has been recorded in her file that her renewed abandonment has been detrimental to her daughter, who was already getting used to her mother's presence.